Hey everyone, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about a movie that I hadn't seen yet until last night, and I was pleasantly surprised by. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It's based off of a book by Elvin Schwartz. I guess it's like a kid's book. I had never even knew it was a book. A lot of people were like, how didn't you know that? Well, not really a property I was that into, so I didn't actually know about it. It's directed by Andre Overdahl, and it's horror slash thriller. It's rated PG-13, so it's another one of those like Happy Death Day horror films, but this one's more on the supernatural side. Stars Zoe Margaret Coletti as Stella Nichols, Austin Zager, I hope I said that right, as Chuck Steinberg, Michael Garza as Ramon Morales, Natalie Ganshorn as Ruth Steinberg, Austin Abrams. I couldn't find if he's any relation to J.J. Abrams. I don't think he is. He plays Tommy Milner. Gabriel Rush as Augie Hildebrand, and Kathleen Pollard as Sarah Bellows. It has a 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, and with a budget of $28 million, made $105.8 at the box office. The story was written by Guillermo del Toro. He wrote like the story for this one. So this movie owes a huge thank you to It Chapter 1 and Stranger Things for allowing it to have likable kid characters. And these kids are in high school, going around solving like the mystery behind the Sarah Bellows book or diary, and very Stranger Things and it vibes that I'm getting there. It Chapter 1 mostly. It's also technically a period piece. Now, with Stranger Things and It Chapter 1, they're set in the 80s. This is set in the 60s. I kind of enjoy that 60s vibe more. Feels very distinctly 60s, on top of the fact that there's a lot of Vietnam era undercuts to it behind the Ramon character, and right off the bat in the beginning sequence we see Tommy Milner sign up for the draft because he's 18. As far as the bullies go, I didn't find Tommy Milner to be as threatening as like Billy Hicks from Stranger Things. He definitely didn't have that big tough guy who could crush you, and he's not like neurotically insane, so I didn't think he was that great. But it's a great time to mention that his death is actually pretty cool and also terrifying at the same time. He gets turned into a scarecrow. You see the straw coming out of his mouth, his eyeballs, his ears, his nose. Mind you, this is a PG-13 movie, so they couldn't do too much gore, which is understandable. It's just a terrifying death to think about, because, I mean, would you want to be turned into a scarecrow and then left there for the rest of your life to, well, do that? I wouldn't. The Sarah Bellows as the killer actually kind of vibed with me a little bit. I really dug the fact that instead of her directly, like a slasher killing her victims or directly as a ghost killing her victims, they used her diary where she would write stories about how they would die. There's the stew for, I think it was Augie. Augie ate a toe stew, but it turned out to be a person, and he threw up and then got killed by the person, monster whose toe it was. Chuck got attacked by a monster in a hospital, kind of this weird pale white, black eyes. It reminded me a lot of the well zombie from The Walking Dead, to be perfectly honest with you. Um, One of the other more creative, I've heard that people don't think she died, but she definitely did. Ruth, she gets bitten by a spider, and then a sore starts growing on her face. Well, it gets progressively worse. She's been covering it up with makeup, and during the big high school dance, it gets super bad, and then pops in the bathroom as she's playing with it, and spiders just come flying out of her, out of the pimple. Yeah, gross. It's super gross. Like, I immediately texted my friends, was like, "Oh my god, guys, this girl just had spiders come out of her face." They're like, "Ew, what?" Where do I think there's problems? Well, I wouldn't say they're problems. There's quite a few of these quieter scenes of just people sitting and talking. Now, I think there's a few too many of them, but they're actually effective for the most part in setting up what's going to happen next in the story, or it's actually a lot of them too are setting up the next like kills. So, what's her name? Stella, she'll open the book and see that it's writing, and then she'll look at Ramon, and they'll know like what that look means, and they start reading what's going on. But the scene is quiet there, and then we jump to these louder scenes where the actual death is happening. Whew. Honestly, kind of gives me chills. I was blown away by this movie. I didn't know how I felt about it, just because I saw the trailers and I was like, "Oh, that looks cool." A few things that I've already seen people talk about this movie, they kind of are like, "Yeah, it's good, but it could be this." You know, they're holding it to Stranger Things and It Chapter 1. I'm not gonna hold it to that. I'm just gonna say that it owes those two properties a thank you for allowing them to get these teenagers to portray likable kids. Even the ones you're not supposed to like Tommy, you're not supposed to like him, but there's something about him that's good. So I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10, mainly because I just think it's 20 minutes longer than it needs to be. If they got rid of one or two of the quieter scenes, they probably could have kept this down and it would have been a 10 out of 10. I also just don't think I have the nostalgia for it like a lot of people do to hold it at that. I still think it's an excellent PG-13 horror movie, and it's clearly well made. A few practical effects, especially with the monsters that you see, but there's a lot of CG stuff too, which as we get more into, especially when I eventually cover the Star Wars movies, you'll find out I'm not a huge fan of CG. I hold it to a higher regard because of what a great example is Star Wars. So in the 70s and 80s, they had these great practical effects because that's what they had to use, and they accomplished it. And then the 2000s, the very early 2000s, it was all CG terrible. Nowadays, and this is why Star Wars is a great example, because nowadays they kind of blend practical with digital effects, which is nice. And this movie does it, but it doesn't do it as good, but it's not anything to really bitch about or complain about. Tonight on Instagram, we're going to talk about TMNT from 2007. I have not watched that in like 5 years. I definitely watched it like every night as like a 15-year-old who got it for his birthday. Actually, honestly, it might have been a lot longer than 5 years. It might be like 8 or 9. I really can't say 100% for sure. I just know I got it for my birthday when I was like 10. Watched it pretty much every day. But yeah, it's been several years. So I don't know where exactly I'm gonna fall for this movie. So we'll find out more. I'm also going to do another review today. I'm going to do the first Happy Death Day, since Happy Death Day to you is tomorrow's movie for Instagram. So, tonight on Instagram and tomorrow on YouTube, we're doing TMNT from 2007. Not exactly everyone's favorite movie. I don't even know. I think when I looked it up, it didn't even have a Rotten Tomatoes score, which is odd because it came out in theaters. So, we'll find out more tonight, I guess. And until tomorrow, I'm Luke, and I will see you later.